Good evening, everyone.
उत्तर प्रदेश मधली प्रमुख लढत ही समाजवादी पक्ष आणि भाजप यांच्यामध्येच आहे. यापैकी
Any idea about rest of the people? Inform others also. Meanwhile, I'll give you a summary of what we have done in the last week. And if you have any doubts, you can let me know. We'll start with programming only today. So today we'll see the basic concepts of Java programming, and we'll start slowly with those concepts. Then you will be able to understand all the Java concepts by this week. On day one, I just gave you an introduction to the software testing, definition of software testing, and why we need to do testing on the application. What is the importance of testing, and the complete development life cycle. We have discussed different development life cycle model. So that is waterfall model, V model, agile scrum model. In that waterfall and agile scrum model, I've shown discussed detailedly like what are the things will happen in waterfall model, what are the things will happen in agile scrum model. It's like a theory part only if you have discussed initially. But only when you get into the project or when you start with the project, you will be adapting to any one of this environment. But all these environment is going to have this SDLC concept. So software development life cycle. Whereas in that testing is going to be the concept we will be discussing in the session. So our topic, the automation topic, programming topic, all will be discussed once manual testing is done. So we started creating or understanding the fundamental process of testing first of all. This is something important. What are the testing life cycle? Those are very important. Testing process. In the testing process, if you see, these are all things which you have to understand: planning and control, analysis and design, implementation and execution. Those who are all between like freshers or less than 4 years or 5 years, you will be concentrating on this part: analysis and design and implementation and execution, where you have to write the test case in the way we designed in last week. Initially, you should have an idea about how to write the test case. What does RTM, requirement traceability matrix, whatever the scenario you're going to cover, that is going to be picked from the requirement. Each scenario will have lots of test cases. You have to start writing the test cases. While writing the test cases, you will come to know, or by seeing the document, you will come to know the steps. Expected value will be there. This is what you have to execute and check whether it is passed or failed. You have to mark it. These test cases you have to write. So that comes under test analysis and design, where you have to review the requirement. Okay, the same way we did initially, reviewing the requirement or understanding the requirement, and we started writing the test case. So that you need to do, and then you have to, once the test case design is done completely, once it is validated, once the application is released for testing, we will try to prioritize the test case and start executing. And based on that, we will be tracing defect life cycle, which we have to see. But test case, if you are able to write it somewhat with this thing, those are new, something like this, if you're able to write that, you can start working with the automation. We have to work on few more testing concepts. So basically, what are the testing levels, as I told you initially. In this, we have seen what is SDLC, and this we have seen in V model, we have to see in detail. So these things still pending, like testing levels, types, all these are going to be pending. Hence, it's going to be 2 hour session. I'll start with Java. I'm going to get into Java. So parallelly, we work on all these testing concepts. Java, we started in the last week. We tried to install JDK 8. Anyone is facing an installation issues? And what about the rest of the people? Any idea? Okay. And then, so here, just ping others also. Try to ask them to join the meeting. So we'll start with technical concepts only in this week. A whole week we'll be discussing on Java part. So first, we try to understand the installation based on the architecture. So whatever the code you write, that's going to be the source code. In order to write the code and set up the environment, we need JDK. Java runtime environment is required. To get the Java runtime environment, we can install JRE or we can install JDK, Java Development Kit, which will install Java runtime environment. With that, we will be able to write the source code and convert it to bytecode. And then we are going to get the output. Whenever you run the Java code, it will be converted into a machine understandable code, which is called bytecode. And then only we'll be getting the output. Source code to bytecode is done with the help of compiler. Java compiler will be there. And from bytecode to output will be done with the help of JVM. JVM is a component which will be available in the Java runtime environment, Java virtual machine, which helps the operating system to understand the bytecode. That is going to be the concept here. And to see detailedly, we have done this in Notepad. Most of you would have tried it. And those who had issue on installing JDK variable to install it, raising the ticket. Okay. We check the Java version and then we try to create a simple Java file using a notepad and try to execute using the command line. So in order to write the Java, just environment setup is enough. If you have the environment setup, you can start writing the Java. But to handle the Java properly, for example, the structure or to get the auto suggestion, you can write it in a notepad, but it will be difficult for us to make sure whether we are writing a proper syntax or alignment issue will be there. It will be quite difficult for us to track whether we are writing a proper code or not. So to get the auto suggestion and auto completion or getting the bytecode automatically and all, we go for some tool, which is nothing but ID, integrated development environment, where it helps us in providing a better way to write the programming. It takes care of most of the things. In which, when it comes to Java, it will take care of generating the bytecodes. Once you save the script, automatically bytecode will be generated. So for structure and all, we have to go for this ID. Otherwise, you can maintain, but it will be quite difficult. For that, we install Eclipse. Once you install the Eclipse, we created the workspace. We will be using the same workspace today as well. And inside the workspace, we created a project. Inside the project, we created the package. Inside package, we created a class, and one main method is what we have created, which is going to be the default structure of your Java program. That is what we have created. So open your Eclipse. We'll discuss about some data types and we'll practice on that. When you open the Eclipse, everyone try to do this. Just open the Eclipse. You see the workspace. Already configured workspace we created in the last week. Anyone is still having an issue in creating the workspace? Try to do during the session. It will be easy for you to follow and try to spend some time in this week, 2 hours daily during the session. That is more than enough for learning the basic concepts. This is something like a foundation for your career also, the Java concept. With this, you can easily get into any level, testing, development. All these things we have to rely on programming. Some programming you have to understand properly. Anyone programming should be clearly known. So make sure you create a workspace and click on launch. Like already, if it is available, just click on launch. It will open the workspace. What are the things we discussed with this? Everyone able to get the output when you run this program? we created a simple hello world program. We're able to execute everyone in the command in the Eclipse. Got it. Now, whenever you modify the script, okay, you can see whenever I modify the script and run it, I'm going to get output. Whatever the code we created. Okay. So whatever the code we created, it's a Java code. .java. That's the source code. The code which we are writing, it's going to be a source code. And source code you can understand, human can understand by going through the source code, and then Java compiler will understand the source code, which will convert that into bytecode. And as I told you, this architecture will always happen. When the bytecode will be generated and where will be the bytecode available. You guys can inform others also to join the mail if you have the mail detail of people. Because today's session is also important. This week's session will be the basement for the rest of the topic. So it's better to inform others as well. And where did we create the bytecode? Like how the bytecode is getting generated? Remember? You are getting the output, right? So where is the bytecode generated? And when it's generated? Yeah, whenever you save the program, you can use chat window or you can unmute and you can repeat. So whenever you save this program, the bytecode will be generated. That will be generated inside your project only. This is going to be your project. Inside the project, you can see bin folder. Inside the bin folder, you'll have same structure as what you created. Com nsc print, com nsc print, and then you see the bytecode. This bytecode, human cannot understand. Your operating system will be able to understand this bytecode with the help of JVM. So once you supply the JVM to all the operating system, you can execute the script and you can check it. That's how the application will be generated, and that is how it is going to be a platform independent. This class file is something which is going to be a platform independent script. Okay. By creating a file, intermediate file, one file, that file you can put to any platform, provided that platform is going to have the JVM. JVM input will be always bytecode. Then JVM helps the operating system. The operating system could be Windows or Mac, whatever it is. It helps the operating system to understand the bytecode. So necessary memory will be allocated and then you will get the output. It's highly important to maintain the updated bytecode. Whenever you modify the script, you can see star here, which means the script is not saved. Once you save it, immediately bytecode will be updated. You can see the time, 7:23 p.m. So this is going to be the setup. So if you have any issue with the setup, or if you are getting a old output, now you know where to check it. Okay, that is how we'll be learning the session. So don't skip the session. It will be very important. This week's session is going to be very important, as I told you. And those who missed the session, just try to ask them to go through the video if you have the links or anything. And when you modify the script, sometimes what happens is those who are starting newly in Java, when you modify the script, you will try to run. When you run it, it will give you a save and launch. By mistake, what you do is you will uncheck this and click on OK. So during that time, it will try to run the old bytecode and give you the output. So you will get confused why we are getting a old output and all. It's because bytecode is not updated. You have to save it. You can use this save all, which will save everything on Control S. Okay. So this is what we discussed in the last week. Okay. Any of Notepad and all, we don't use it for writing the program. We use Eclipse or IntelliJ. Eclipse, you can use it as those who are starting it new. You can use the Eclipse or any one ID is something which is important. You have to concentrate any one ID. So when we created this class, all of you listen here. When you try to run this class, it should have the main method. If the classes are not having a main method, let me remove the main method and just cut it. You can see I cannot trigger this class. Unless you see there is no main method, I just removed some code in this. And when I try to trigger, you see it's not allowing me to run the program. Okay. The problem here is whenever you want to trigger the class, there should be a start point. There should be a start point. Basically, bytecode is going to be generated. Whenever you modify some script and save it, bytecode will be generated. Now, When you trigger the bytecode, JVM comes into picture and check for the main method. Do we have main method in this class? There is no main method. Main method is going to be the entry point of your class. If you want to trigger the class, any code if you want to write and trigger, you should write within this main method. If you try to write outside the main method or without the main method, your code will be showing error. This is not the way to write the code. Whatever the code we write within the main method. Main method starts here, ends here. So in this section, you can write it. And this is a predefined one. You should not modify any name over here. If you modify this, it becomes a user-defined method, which means you only need to call it. For calling it, you need some other main method. Right now, if you see, when I trigger it, that's not going to allow me to run. It should be properly designed. In case, while creating a class, if you miss to write main method, shortcut key is you can type main. Get the shortcut key. If you listen here, system.out.println and all, you have a shortcut keys. Just make a note of it. For main method, what you can do is type main and use control space. Type main, use control space. It will give you this option. You can double click on this, or until you do, it will create the main method for you. This is going to be the start, and there can be only one entry point. You cannot have two main method and all. Duplicate or not allowed. A class can have only one entry point, so only one main method is possible. Inside this, whatever you write, you are going to get the output. System.out.println is what we are actually writing. System.out.println and double quotes we are writing something. Those are all data types. We have to work on those data types. We'll try to work on that today. Now, hello world, if you want to refer, you have to refer by using the package name com.nsc.print. We only created this package. Inside the class only, you'll have main method. Main method comes inside the class, and the class will come inside the package. Now, system is already an existing class. What about this java.lang? We did not create a system class. Our team already designed few set of classes, methods, and shared. We are going to use that. That's what going to come in library. You can see in your project left hand side, you can see the library. So system is a class name. What about this java.lang? What is this java.lang? System, and these details are coming from the library. For example, hello world. Let's take this class hello world. Just understand the terms clearly. Class name is hello world. And what about this com.nsc.print? The package. Okay. Our system is a class name. What could be this java.lang? Java.lang. It is a package. Okay. When it comes to Java, you don't want to get complicated, or it's going to be very simple only. So you will have a project that you leave it as your project you can create it. So you will have package, class, method. These three is what you need to understand. Package, class, method. Now this is a class name. System is a class name, which is coming from the package java.lang. Did we create this package java.lang? Anywhere we created a package called java.lang? See, not everything we are going to do it from the scratch. Okay, we try to install JDK. When you try to install JDK, they will give set of code. Like println will print the output. This code is already designed, kept inside the class system. This class is basically coming from the package java.lang. Your existing package that is basically coming from the library. Okay. You can see in your project. If I delete this or if I uninstall Java JDK, basically it will throw error. You can see. Yeah, any doubts? I have muted someone. In case of doubts, you can unmute and let me know. Inform everyone that we are going to work with Java only in this week. Okay. So at least by tomorrow, everyone should be watching this recording and joining. We'll go slowly. We'll be doing lots of practice in the session, so you can inform others to join. It's not about going through the recording only. You have to do hands-on during the session. Now, in this library is nothing but collection of packages. Library is nothing but collection of packages. We'll discuss about library later. For example, assume that you have created some 100 packages. Your company created 100 packages and you want to share that package to someone. During that time, you can collect all the package and convert into jar. You can see jars. Okay. Sorry, let me make it clear. Library is nothing but collection of jars. You love the jars. Jars is nothing but collection of packages. Suppose you have to share some 100 packages or 10 packages, you can easily convert to jar and share it. We'll do all these things when it comes to framework. As of now, you can understand this library is going to contain that package java.lang. Inside that, it will be having system. Every time we will not go and check these things. We just see there is a class comes from this place. Suppose if this class is throwing error or anything, it could be a problem that a library is missing or class name is wrong. The system is basically coming from the java.lang. Java.lang is coming to library. If I remove this library, it will throw error. Okay. I will show you that removing the library and all, we don't want to get complex into it. You can easily do it by right clicking on the project and build path and all. Let's keep it simple. System. Inside the system, you will have out. Inside that out is basically a variable. We will discuss about that. As of now, initially, what you need to understand, you have to understand all these as a syntax. And going forward, there is a concept called object. There is something called object. If you understand what is an object, entire OOPS concept will be clear. The whole OOPS concept can be understood with the help of object. If OOPS concept is clear, you can easily adapt to any language. Java, C#, Python, any language you can easily adapt. Now, Java is basically case sensitive. You have to be following all the standards over here. And syntax based, if you miss semicolon, it will throw error. Once the semicolon is provided, you can continue the code the same line. Semicolon is basically a termination of a line. This out, you can see I typed sys out, and then control space if I do, automatically it will enter system.out.println. Let me try to print hello and then run the script. You can see hello world, hello. For reading, we'll try to write it in a proper way. Instead of writing in a single line, it will be very difficult for reading purpose. So we'll write it like this. Semicolon is mandatory. If you miss semicolon, it will throw error. While generating a bytecode, it will throw error. Bytecode, anyhow, it is generated by Eclipse, it will give you the error. Compile errors and all will be given by Eclipse. Compile time, runtime you need to understand. Compile time, if I refer, it is a generation of bytecode. Runtime means from bytecode, we are getting the output. That is your runtime. Until this, it's clear for you. Any doubts you have or any queries on this particular structure architecture? Everything's fine. Got some idea about Java? Next, hereafter we'll be getting into some technical concepts. That is, first thing is basic data types is what you need to work on. Any programming you take, data types will be there. Data types, for example, if you want to store your name, you want to do arithmetic operation, how to do the arithmetic operation. So those things you need to understand. Java is a typed language, which means there are predefined data types. We already have a data types with us. Java team is already informed us about those data types. We are going to use those data types. Okay, data types is basically classified into ways. One is predefined data types. You have to understand why we call it as predefined, which you will be understanding it one by one. Predefined data types, and also it's called primitive data types. Predefined is going to be something which you need to understand why we call it as predefined. And there is one more set which is called non-predefined, which means you can create your own data types. In Java, you can create your own data types. We'll see about that. For example, for storing a number and all, we have a data types already. It's designed by the Java team. Let me show you. So there are some set of data types, like data types like byte. We have something called, for example, I want to store a number 100. For storing a number 100, let me take some simple documents. You see, there are some data types like byte, short, int, long, float, full, char, boolean. So this set is basically called predefined data types. Why we call it as predefined data types, how it is actually designed, all these things we will be seeing one by one. Before that, first we'll understand how to use these data types. For example, I want to store a number 100. How to do it? Okay, let's do it. Everyone create a new package. Package needs to be created under SRC. SRC is nothing but source. Right click on SRC, new package. Okay, and while giving the package name, we will be following the standard that also we discussed in the last week. Company name dot the purpose of the package, or sometimes you will be using org. It depends on the company which you work. Right now, you can give com.nsc dot purpose. Here we are going to discuss about data types. So by seeing the package, you can easily classify what concepts you are discussing. Inside the, and it should be in lowercase. Inside the package, you can create a class. Create it quickly. And class name, you can keep it as a data types demo. It should be a camel case. So every word first letter should be in uppercase. Data types demo and main method. We need a start point. If you don't have start point, you cannot run that particular class. The class needs the start point. That start point is decided by the predefined method called public static void main. You can include that. There's a chance we might miss to click on this checkbox and all, so no need to worry. We have a shortcut key to generate it. And you can see something like super class, it shows like java.hang.object and all these things you have to understand. You have to understand slowly. As of now, you can create a class. If you miss to create the main method, you just type main, you control space, you're going to get the main method option. Done creating the main method. Create a new class. Don't open your Eclipse and try to practice it. Done. Even it's better to open the Eclipse and practice. Now, then only you will get see, while listening, it looks like simple, but only when you start writing it, you will feel the complexity. So if you do it parallelly, it will be easy for you to go with the upcoming topic. Okay. Now, listen carefully. I want to store a number 100. In order to store a number 100, Java is basically a typed language, which means you have to give the data type. For any value you want to show, you have to give the data type. What data type I have to use and all, we have to think slowly. We have to get into that. Right now, I'll just give you an idea. You can see there is a data type called byte. It's already predefined one, already designed by the Java team. Predefined in the sense, the size, the range, default values, everything is going to be fixed. Everything is going to be fixed. Once you give this data type, it can store a range between -128 to 127. That is 8-bit. Okay. Bits I already told you in the last class. Okay, I did not tell you. Okay, fine. We'll discuss about it. See, for example, whatever you are going to run, it will occupy some memory in your laptop. Okay, in your RAM. RAM is nothing but a temporary storage, right? So in that, it will try to store some detail, and then once you complete the Java code, all will be destroyed automatically. It will be taken care by Java. Java will manage the memory. No need to worry about it. Once you run, it will try to allocate to memory, and then it will destroy that memory once all are completed. Now, if I have 1 GB RAM, for example, you can try to understand the. If I have 1 GB, then it means 1024 MB megabyte, and 1 megabyte is 1024 kilobyte, and 1 kilobyte is 1024 byte. And if you dig deep into, you get some clarity on this. 1 byte is nothing but 8 bits. Okay. What is 1 bit? Either 0 or 1. Okay. Whatever the value you are going to store in your laptop, basically in the machine, it will be converted into some binary form and it will get stored. Okay, it will not directly store the value. It will try to convert into some binary form, which is machine understandable code. In your 8 GB RAM, if you see this, if you use byte, around 8 bit will be occupied in your 8 GB RAM. In your 8 GB RAM, 8 bit is going to be very less, very less. Okay, that will be occupied. That too, it's not permanently, only during the execution. Once it is completed, it will be removed. For example, for storing a number 100, I can store it in byte. You can see the range. We'll discuss about how it is defined, the range and all. We'll discuss that. So byte, if you see, it can hold 100 because minus 128 to 127, I can store it in byte. Short, I can use for storing a value 100. You can see the range. And integer also I can use. Long also I can use. Float and double is for storing a decimal values, which I can use. Character, any one character you can store. And Boolean, either true or false. These are all predefined data types. For example, if I want to store a number, I can store it byte equal to byte is the data type you have to give. These are all keyword, reserved keyword. Byte and variable name you need to give. Identifier basically. Any variable name you can give. So A equal to, let me give the variable value as 100. Okay. So this is a valid record. Now, when you run the program, variable A will be reserved for byte. What is the size of byte? You can go through the document and you can think. So what is the size of byte right now? It's 8 bit. Okay. So right now, A will be reserved for byte, and in your RAM of 1 GB or 8 GB RAM, you will have in that during the runtime, not now. Now nothing will happen. When I run it during the runtime, it gets occupied, and then once that is completed, it will be released. 8 bit of memory is getting used, right? I've stored some value in order to print it. I can do system.out.println. Try to use shortcut keys. Just type sys out, use control space. Try to practice using the shortcut keys. Control space you do, because no need to write each and every line of code. I wanted to print the value what is stored in A. Should we give it in double quotes or without double quotes? What happen if I give it in double quotes? If I give it in double quotes, it just prints the A, but I want the value stored in A. So during that time, you have to print the variable name. Variable name is A. So whatever the value is stored in A, it will get printed, right? The range is fixed for byte. It can accept minus 128 to 127. I'll just give you an idea of quickly about that. So don't get complicated with this. Let's take a byte. Okay. For example, whatever the number you are trying to store, it will be converted into binary form. So what is the maximum value I can store in byte? It says 127. Let me try to store 127 and run it. You can see it's giving you the output. Let me store 128. What's happening when I store 128? And when you get the error, right now throw the error. When you get the error, don't get confused or don't close anything. Just go to that error and hover on it. Eclipse will tell you the detail. Here you have a red line. Hover on the red line, it will tell. Type mismatch, not convert in byte. Basically, what is actually happening over here is when I give 128, 128 cannot be stored in byte. Okay, the reason is whatever the number you store, it will be converted to binary form. In that, whereas byte is nothing but 8 bit. Okay. In that, 7 bit will be used. Just listen carefully. Will be used for storing the number. For storing the number, and 1 bit will be used for sign. Used for sign, plus or minus. Now listen carefully, because for byte we can discuss, we cannot discuss for short, integer and all, because it's more range. Byte we can easily understand. Let's try to convert. Let me try to do that. 127. See, you might have done it in the college days, like divide by 2. You might be doing it. Right now, it's not required. Let me convert this into binary form, 127 to binary form. How many digits I'm getting here? You can see here, 7 ones are there. Okay. 127, 7 1. So basically, a byte is nothing but it will have the memory of 8 bit. 8 bit it can store. In that, if you see, if I convert 127 to binary form, it is exactly 7 1. Okay, remaining one digit is for sign. Maximum, this is the value I can store it in the byte. That's how range will be fixed. Is it clear for you? Got some idea about it? Let me try to convert 128 to binary form. See, when I convert 128 to binary form, it goes more than that. If you see here, it goes for storing the number itself, it will take 8. So for sign, we need additional 1 bit. Okay, so which means 9 bit, which cannot be stored in the byte. That is the problem over here. That's why we cannot store the 128. Maximum it can store 127. 1 bit is reserved. You don't want to worry about that 1 bit. You can leave that 1 bit. Only 7 bit will be there storing the value. So during that time, 128 is not possible over here. Okay. Got some idea about it. The same thing will be applicable for short. The same thing will be applicable for integer also. But to calculate for short and integer and all, it will be quite complex. But one thing what you need to know is why we need these many data types. Everything I can store it in long, or everything I can store it in double. What is the purpose of these many data types? See, I can store this short a equal to 100. Let me give it as 100. All these are possible. CA is already reserved for byte. You cannot redeclare it. You cannot redeclare for any data type. Even for byte, it is not allowed. So A is already reserved for byte. So you have to use a different variable name. Let me use B here, storing the same value 100. And let me use int C, storing the same value 100. Now, I will be getting the output. Output and all, there is no change. Whatever the value you store, if you try to print, you are going to get the output. Why we have these many data types? Let me run it. I'm getting all the output. What is the purpose of having these many data types? I can store all the values in integer itself. Why we have these many data types? Integer and double itself we can store. It's for any idea? Okay, the main reason is for memory management. For example, let's you have to dig into this based on scenarios. For example, if you are going to calculate like a percentage of 1,000 students, what will be the range of percentage? Let's take whole number only. So the range will be 0 to 100, the percentage detail. Okay. In order to store 0 to 100, for example, you have something like 1,000 students. Assume that you have 1,000 students. 1,000 students, you want to calculate the percentage. If you take byte, each student, 1 percentage will be there. I have to store it. If I take byte for storing the value 1,000 student, then it will occupy 1 byte is basically 8 into 1,000. So for execution, it will occupy 8,000 bits of memory during the execution. In your RAM, it will occupy during the runtime. Once that is done, it will be released. And what if I use int for doing the same calculation? 0 to 100, I can store it in integer also. What happened in that case? What is the size of integer right now? You can see 32. Either you store 0 or you store 100, whatever it is, based on the data type you give, it will reserve the memory. Okay. Whatever the value you store, based on the data type, it will reserve the memory. Integer will take, one integer will take 32 bit, and for doing the same calculation, and it will occupy 32,000 bits of memory. Okay, so basically, if you save the memory properly, if you work the memory properly, you are going to get the better performance in that case. If you keep on increasing the students count like 1,000, 3,000, you can see the difference. Right now itself, difference is around 24. If I use a byte instead of integer, I can save around 24,000 bits of memory for doing the same calculation. Like there won't be any change in the output. If you use precise data type, you can save 24,000 bits of memory for doing this calculation. Okay, and when you save the memory during the runtime, you can see RAM is going to occupy less memory. So what is going to happen? Obviously, the performance will be improved. Okay, the application response will be much faster than the integer when we go for integer. Okay, and it depends on the scenario. So it will be very useful for the development team when they develop a software or anything. They will try to take precise data type based on the requirement. That's what they will try to take just to improve the performance. So these are all good quality. Okay, coding standard we have to learn from the beginning. So it will be one of the coding standard. So using a precise data type. In our case, we are going to do an automation. Our duty is to validate the data present in the application. So most of the time, what we do is we will try to get the data. For example, this data I want. All these data will try to read it from the web page. When you try to read it from the web page and all, most of the time we will get it as a string data type only. There is a data type called string, which we'll be discussing. In that data type only we'll be getting. So we will be doing a conversion to integer or float or double. Depends on the requirement, we'll try to do the conversion. If you choose during the conversion, if you choose a precise data type, the performance will be increased. And with this value and all, you cannot see the performance. When you run it, it's going to occupy and release it immediately, and you will not see any difference here when you execute with byte integer. When you take an enterprise application with 10,000 records, 20,000 records and all, you can see the major difference in the runtime. But this is all about the basic data types: byte, short, int. Now, any doubts you have? Yes. Let's discuss about the other data type: long, float, double, or boolean. So if I use long, it will occupy 64 bit. For example, all of you listen carefully. This is clear for you how to use integer, short. We'll do some arithmetic operation in some time. Is it clear for you? Got some idea about int, short, byte and all? No. Let's go for long. When it comes to Java programming is having some constraints. So those constraints also you need to understand. Whatever the number, you store it on the right hand side. Whatever the number, you store it on the right hand side. We will give something like int a equal to 200 or short b equal to 100. So first, what will happen is right hand side execution will happen. Remember properly, right hand side execution will happen. Then it will try to store in the data type what you provided. Initially, these value will be recorded. Then it will try to store it in the data type what you have given. So right now, when you deal with whole number, Java, when you deal with the whole number like 100, 200, 120, something like that, then it will consider us int. Okay. And when you deal with decimal, I'll tell you about this. It will consider us. For storing a decimal value, you have two data types. One is float, the other one is double, float and double. Let's work on that. Storing a decimal value. When you deal with decimal, it will consider as a double. Okay. For example, for giving a long number, let me try to give long. Long is also a data type. It will have the memory of 64 bit. You can see the range more than the integer. Let me try to give long b equal to some value I'll give. If you see here, even though I give a value over here, which is within the range only, you can see the range here. How many digits over here, but I'm giving within a range only. Still, it will throw this error. The literal of type int is out of range. Okay. Even though I give it as a long value, it will try to take it as an integer. Whenever you deal with whole number, Java will try to consider this as an integer by default. Then you can store it in your own data type. Now, when you deal with decimal, it will consider as a double. Now, the problem here is it is an integer cannot be low. Like this part, right hand side calculation will happen first of all. Right hand side value will be first of all loading in memory. While loading it, it will take it as an integer. Right now, when it is taking it as an integer, you can see this error. The of type int is out of range. What you need to do is you have to mention long. It should be 64-bit. D should be registered as a long with 64-bit with this value. 64-bit is nothing but the size which I'm telling. So you have to explicitly mention L. You have to explicitly mention L, then only it will be considered as a long. Got it? For long, you have to explicitly mention. Same thing will be applicable for float also. Let me give float equal to, let me give 10.2. It will start throwing the error. Okay. Now, see the error right now. Not convert double to float. What is the size of double? In this chart, what is the size of double? Notice it is 64-bit, right? 64-bit, we are trying to store it in the float. It is 32-bit. As I told you, decimal value, if you deal with, it will try to occupy as double. First of all, right hand side, it will be taking it as double. Now it is trying to do something like storing double into float and all. So these conflicts, what is happening with Java, we have to fix it. For long, we have to give L. For float, we have to give F. Explicitly, you need to mention. Okay. Most of the time, when we deal with automation, we'll deal with integer and double. That's it. We deal with integer and double most of the time because for us, the value, the data accuracy is important. If it is a whole number, mostly we'll deal with integer. Decimal values, we deal with double. Suppose in case you want to deal with float, you know exactly only these many decimal points are going to come. Why to go with double? In that case, you have to explicitly mention F. Double F equal to some value I can give. By default, this will be taken as a double. So 10.2, if you give any decimal value, you give 10.0 also you give. Here also, if you give 10.0 also, it will consider as a double only, 64-bit. To consider this as a float, we have to explicitly mention F. For double, you can leave it as it is. Full number will be of integer. Decimal value will be of double. Keep that in mind. While doing arithmetic calculation, you have to be careful. While doing with the whole number, output will be of integer. When you deal with the decimal values, output will be of double. So based on that, you have to store the data types. Okay. Apart from that, we have something like char data type. These are all predefined data types. Character means what is the size of character? It's a 16 bits. Whatever the value you store, it will be converted into Unicode character. You can see 0000. Okay, that is nothing but space. And each and every character you store, it will be converted into an ASCII code or Unicode order. Then it will store. For that, 16 bits of memory is required. You can store any one character. You have to give it in single quotes. Java character can be stored by using single quotes. Now within the single quotes, you can give the character. So you can see special character possible. That is special character is possible. One number you can give, number you cannot give because one character only can accept. And you can give lowercase, uppercase, any one character you can store. And that's the logic here. And if you print, you are going to get the output. Whenever you do system.out.println, it will print it and show you the details. Character. That will occupy one character is going to occupy 16 bits of memory. For Boolean, it will take 1 bit. Boolean is a data type where you can store either true or false, 0 or 1. Okay, and you can see it is 1 bit. System.out.println. Let me try to check. It is the variable. Let me print it. It will try to store either true or false. Now these are all predefined data types. And data types conversion and all, you can do it. Okay, I'll tell you how to do it right now. Just listen carefully. First, declaration is clear for you. You have to give the data type detail properly, case sensitive, then the variable name, then you can give the value. Now, right now, when I run this program, here 8-bit will be occupied, B will be reserved for 16-bit, this will be reserved for 32-bit, D will be reserved for 64-bit, E will be reserved for 32-bit, float is of 32. Double will be reserved for 64-bit, okay, plus 16-bit plus 1-bit. During the runtime, this is going to be the memory occupied in your RAM. Once you come out of this method, all will be destroyed immediately. Okay. Memory management will be automatically taken care. There is a concept called garbage collector, which we will discuss later. Okay. Just understand how to store a value for doing the arithmetic operation. These are called predefined data types. Okay. Got some idea about this? Okay. Let's try doing this calculation. Let's take the radius as let me give the radius as 10. Try to calculate area of circle. Calculate area of circle. For example, if you wanted to do the calculation, arithmetic operation, those things are straightforward. If I wanted to do a plus b, then I can create a variable. For example, here let me do it. Return type, let me keep it as a result, and the data type I'll keep it as a integer, int result, a plus b. Arithmetic operation, basic arithmetic operation. System.out.println result. Okay, if I run that, it will try to do a plus b and give you the output. Okay, the output where you can store the output, the 200. You have to choose the data type based on that. Most of the time, when you deal with whole number, you can go for integer. Okay. Now, if you try to store it in byte or anything, it may throw error during declaration itself. Now, for a arithmetic operation, for example, result is already initialized with integer. What happen if I try to redeclare it again? You can see it is basically showing that it already is a duplicate variable and all, it's not allowed. But you can change the value. You can change it at any time, but already it is reserved for integer. You can store only an integer value. If you want to change, you can store by changing the integer value, but you cannot store a decimal value because result is already reserved for double or integer. Cannot be convert to from double to int, which is not possible. Okay. So all these arithmetic operation I'm dealing is going to be less than integer or integer, so it's going to work. Okay. Some multiplication, subtraction, all these things is possible. Let's do area of circle. So for calculating area of circle, what will be the logic? So you can take the as 3.14. AR square is the logic. 3.14 radius into radius. How to do that? Just try it and store it in the data type. If you calculate the area of a circle, the formula is going to be 3.14. Okay, 3.14 into radius. It's going to be the formula. Try doing that calculation and see whether you're able to do it. Like this, what I did over here, you have to do it. Try it. we're able to do. For doing this calculation, so this will be the logic. So we have circle if I wanted to calculate. This two forward slash is nothing but a comment which you can create it by giving control forward slash or control 7. Shortcut keys and all will be available under source. The source you can see toggle command control 7. If I do that, I cursor in line number 32. If I do this, it will comment. It's already commented means it will uncomment, toggle command. It's a single line command which will not execute when you run the program. Just a information which I'm giving it through the command. I wanted to calculate this area of circle. So pi is going to be 3.14. Write it. Yeah. So pi value, you can store it and take it, or you can directly do it. For example, if I want to store the pi value, if I want to store it in float, let me give float equal to float pi equal to 3.14. If I do that, right now you see it's going to throw error, because if you are going to take it as a float, you have to give f. Okay. Otherwise, it will take it as a double only. It will throw error. It will throw this error. Cannot convert double to float. You have to change this to double, or you have to give f. Right now, what I'm trying to do is I'm going to do the calculation directly. Let me do it. So 3.14 into radius. Already I have the radius. Let me do radius into radius. Now, while doing the arithmetic operation, you have to store it somewhere. While storing it, you have to give the data type. You cannot give the data type randomly. You cannot do something like this. Okay. And all I cannot. You have to understand what data type you are going to get as an output. Right now, radius is of integer. What about this 3.14? What data type it is? 3.14 if you give double or float. It is going to be a double. When you give f, it might be considering as a float. It is float. When you give, otherwise it will be considered as a double. Now the data type, the outcome is based on double. You can see the outcome will be of double. You have to store it in double only. So output you have to store it properly. Double. Then only you will be getting a proper output. System.out.println result. Basic idea about data type. Let me run it. All the arithmetic operations you can do. For example, division. When you deal with the division, understand this clearly. Let me do one thing. All of you listen carefully. Let me do one thing. Let me do system dot. Let me try to do int a. Int a is already there. X equal to 8 and int y equal to 2. Okay. Listen carefully. I wanted to do division. N by 2 I want to do, x by y I want to do. So what will be the output when I do x by y? How to store it somewhere? Let me store it in the variable name output. What data type I have to give it here? When you do division, what will happen in this case? Okay, so we cannot see, we have to understand the programming constraint over here. We cannot directly do this and then take the data type. We cannot do this 10 by 2 and then taking the output. Okay. Or let me do 10 by 3. 10 by 3, let's do. When I do 10 by 3, what will be the output? We are going to get some decimal values, right? But your programming will not be working in that way. Directly, it will not do 10 by 3 and take the decimal value and give it. What it does basically is, yeah, 3.333 something. So what it does basically is, first it will check the data type. On the right hand side, it will check the data type. So what data type it is? X and Y belongs to what data type? Integer. Okay. So when it is dealing with integer, the output will be of integer only. Output will be of integer only. Even though you store it in a double, the output will be of integer only. If I try to print the output, I know 10 by 3 is going to be 3.333, but what is going to be the output right now? Check it here. So what output I'm printing at ABC. You can see when I run this program, even though I'm doing division, I'm going to get the output as 3. Okay. The output will be based on the data type decided here. It is going to be completely dealing with integer. The output will be of integer. Even though you do 10 by 3, then it will take only the integer value. Is it clear for you? This is your programming constraint. To overcome this, how to make sure something is considered as a decimal value. So what we can do in that case? Yeah, so I can do simple option is I can declare anyone as a double. When I do anyone as a double, double into anything is going to be double only. Output, you can see it started throwing error saying that mismatch, you have to store it in double. It's exactly data type is going to be double. Any one thing you have to deal with double. Now, when you deal with double, you are going to get the decimal value. Understood? More decimal values. If you deal with float, you will be getting less decimal values. There will be a decimal value difference will be there that I'll show you. Understood? Programming constraint, everyone. Just try this. Let's take a base as 25. Let me quickly cover a few more things. For example, this programming constraint, when you take it, lots of options is there to do this activity. So what I can do basically is there is a concept called typecasting. You can try doing the typecasting. Let me do it. See right now, byte. Let's listen carefully. C is an integer. C can store A, which is possible. C can store B, which is possible. Whatever I'm trying to do over here, it's called implicit conversion. It's called implicit conversion, which will not lead to data loss. What I'm trying to do over here is I'm trying to store byte in integer, possible. Short in integer, which is possible. So same thing will be applicable for this term also. Let me try to put it over here. Let me keep it as data 1. And this one I'll keep it as data 2. So if I try to do this data 2 equal to data 1, which is possible. Okay, what I'm trying to do is 34-bit trying to store it into 64-bit, which is possible, which is called implicit conversion, which will not lead to data loss. There is an alternate way. What if I store this? What happens when I do data 1 equal to data 2? So what is the size of data 2? Double. The size is going to be 64-bit. And data 1 is of 32-bit. Right now it will throw the error. It must not convert double to float. Is it clear for you why we get this error? Makes sense? 64-bit, we are trying to put it into 32-bit. Got it? How can we fix this issue? You can see Eclipse gives you few options to fix it. First, you leave it. For other, just listen carefully. Change type of data 1 to double. So asking us to change the data type to double makes sense. Or change that type of data to float. Just ask me us to change this to float. And one more option it gives you, cast. What we are trying to do right now here is going to cast. Cast is nothing but right now I'm trying to do a cast to float. I'm converting double to float. Double to float. If you see 64-bit to 32-bit is what I'm trying to do. 64 to 32-bit is what I'm trying to reduce. Now this is called explicit conversion. While doing this explicit conversion, you have to be careful that it could lead to data loss. Data loss might happen. Okay. Now, if the range is small, you will not see any data loss. You can see data 1. Let me try to put data 1. If the range is small, you will not see any data loss. Let me comment this. Okay, I'm trying to, I have two values, data 1, data 2. If the range is small, you don't see any data loss here. Let me run this and show you. You can see 10.0. Let me do one thing. Let me try to put the double as 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, and then I'll try to print both the value. Let me print before conversion and after conversion. Data 2 I'll print. This value I'm trying to print directly, data 2, and then converting this value to float, data 2 to float, and then printing it. Just see the last two value. What is happening? In line number 56, we are getting data 2, which means the exact output I am trying to store is going to be coming over here, double. And when I try to convert that to float, 64-bit to 32-bit, what it tries to do is it tries to reduce the memory. When it is trying to reduce the memory, it will try to round off with less significant number. Around 7 values it will try to take, and it will try to do a round off. And when you do a round off, if you are trying to calculate with more values, 25, 30 records and all, if you keep on casting it like this without knowing it, it might lead to a data loss, major data loss. Okay. While doing a casting, you have to be very careful. Is it castable or not? You should know. When you have a huge decimal values, if you wanted to do a cast, you know exactly why you are casting, then go for this casting. Okay. Otherwise, try avoiding this explicit conversion. Now, why I'm teaching this explicit conversion is in this stage, when I try to do this xx equal to 10 and int yy equal to 3. When we do this int z equal to x by y, I'm getting an output as integer. This we have seen. Here we can apply the typecasting. When I run this, here I can try to apply the typecasting. You can see it shows 3. What I can do is I can convert this integer to double. How to do that? By just providing a bracket here and convert to double. Okay. Any one value you convert to double. So the output will be of double. You have to change the data type to double. Now you will be able to see a proper output. Okay. The typecasting you can use, but when to use or where to use and all, you have to decide. Unwanted typecasting should not be encouraged. Suppose I'm going to get a decimal values. I'm not dealing with any decimal values. You can convert that integer to double by doing this activity. Here, what we are doing is converting into the double. So, which is quite possible, and that's not going to lead any data loss. We know exactly. But here, it's here 32 to 64, which is not going to lead any data loss. To understand how to use typecasting and fix this issue, got some idea about this typecasting. Okay, coming back to the next concept. See, all these are predefined data types. If you see here till now, if someone asks you the size of byte, you can tell it. If someone asks you the size of long, you can tell. You don't want to know the values and all. I don't want to tell you what value I'm going to store and all. If I ask you the size of double, you can tell. If I ask you the size of character, you can tell. The character size is 16-bit. And size of boolean, you can tell. We have some as non-predefined data types. This is what we frequently use, non-predefined data types. And here we have to use this for arithmetic operation. Okay. And for doing the, if I want the remainder and all, you can try to do the system.out.println. And if you want the remainder, XX, percentage symbol, that is called mod operator, YY. This will give you the remainder. Get the remainder, this will be the option. Is called mod operator. Percentage only, we call it as module or mod operator, which will give you the division, plus minus multiplication division, and then this will try to give you the remainder. Okay, this will try to give you the quotient. So got some idea about this? Now these are all predefined data types. Now why we call few set as non-predefined data types? We have something called string. String is the most widely used data type. We have something called array. Whatever the data type you are going to create in the session, you will be creating some data types like employee, student, and all. So those data types are comes under a non-predefined data types. Non-predefined data types are nothing but it's basically collection of predefined one, collection of predefined one. Whereas string is nothing but collection of characters. Array is nothing but collection of any data types. That is all non-predefined data types. Now, in a simple term to explain what is non-predefined data types, you can just put this question. The size of short you can easily understand. Without knowing the value, you can easily tell the size of short is going to be 16-bit. The size of integer 32-bit. The size of string will be known only when you know the number of characters. Okay, it is non-predefined. When you store it, then only it will allocate the memory. For example, string name equal to, let me give my name and let me store my name. This is how you have to store a string. This is the most frequently used data type. In any language, string will be most frequently used data type. String, you can see for double, int, float, all these I used a keyword, reserved keyword. For string, it's a class. It comes from what package? String comes from which package? You can see java.lang. Java.lang I already shown you. It is inside the library. Now string is a class, so S should be in uppercase. And we like the way we created a class. Now string is also one of the class. Inside the class, we can create customized data type. So string class deals with collection of characters. String class deals with collection of characters. Whatever the value I store, it will store character by character only. Since it is most frequently used, we have a way to declare a string like this. Otherwise, we have to create something like an object and all we need to store. Right now, we don't get complex into it. To store some collection of characters, you can put it inside double quote. Okay. Now, the size of string, if someone asks you the size of string, you cannot tell until you know the number of characters. How many characters we have here? I know the number of characters stored in this. How many characters is loaded here? Okay, 6 characters. Now, the size of this particular string. Okay, the size of this particular string is basically 6 into each character is going to be 16 bits. It's not predefined. You cannot predefine it, and only when you know the value you can exactly calculate, or only when you run it during that time only it will allocate 6 characters. Sometimes it will allocate 7 characters. Sometimes it will allocate 20 characters. It depends on the value what I store in this. Okay, simple question will solve the answer for why we call it as not predefined. You cannot the size of string. Okay, only when you declare it, only when you know the exact value, how many integer or how many character, then only you can tell the size. That's why we call it as non-predefined. Clear for you why we call some subset as non-predefined? Using the predefined data types, these are all designed. Okay, got it? Non-predefined data types will be following this concept only. Zero-based index. Just listen carefully. Zero-based index, and we'll see about this zero-based index. Right now, what is going to happen is this character will be loaded in memory. Now, 6 character will be loaded in memory, and how it is getting loaded and all we will be seeing. Character by character, it will be loading in memory. For example, B will be loaded with index 0.0. There is some index starts with 0. Index starts with 0. 0th index, B will be there. In first index, A will be there. In second index, L will be there. That's how it will be loaded value. If there are 6 character, what will be the index point? What are the index point we will be seeing? So name is the variable name. So name I gave it as a variable name. So name will be pointing to some location. We will discuss about this location and all. Don't get confused. In memory, it will be stored like this only. It will try to store 0th index will be holding B. First index will be holding A. Second index will be holding L. Third index will be holding A. Fourth index will be holding J. And index will be holding. This is how it will be stored. Okay. I want to know exactly what is the character in second index. I want to know what is the character in third index. For that and all, we have methods to get it. We'll be using it. But for that, we should know what is a method. So you can see char at name dot. It's a method basically comes inside the class. We are calling that method name dot char at. Char at index point I need to give. Let me give the index point as 2. So what character is there in index point 2? Is that clear for you? Character by character only it will store. We'll see about all these methods. We have to discuss about system.out.println. I told you it's going to print and how these methods are created, what is method, those concepts we did not discuss yet. Okay. And if I try to give index 1, what will be printed? At 1. Okay. Is that clear for you? How it is stored? If you are clear with the basic concepts, okay, it will be very easy for you to follow the objects. What is an object? Right? Object deals with all these things. You cannot skip it and move on. You have to understand all these things. So non-predefined always it will store index base only. Either it could be a string or whatever the array, it will be based on 0th index only. It starts with 0th index. A string means collection of character. Each character will be stored on the index. And as since it is most frequently used, it will be quite difficult for us to access the index and store the value, get the value. That's why you customize the logic for string. Only for string, you have to understand that customized logic given from the Java team. We'll be discussing about it. As of now, the size of this particular string name equal to 6 into 16 bits of memory. It is not predefined. Only when you load the value, it will come to know how many character. Is it clear for you? First of all, string detail. Got some idea about string, why we call it as non-predefined. Okay. If someone asks you define predefined non-predefined data types, you can just tell that size of integer double or well known. Basically, you can tell the size of integer double, whatever the value you store, it's going to be 32-bit, 64-bit, whereas string is defined only when you load the value. Okay. So you should know the number of character need to store, and only you can tell the size. That's why we call it as non-predefined. Now array is also going to be a non-predefined data types. Let's create one more class inside the package. Let me create one more class inside this package. Data types demo. Already there's a class called data types demo, so it will not allow. So let me keep it as demo 2, and I'll create a class. In order to write any code, I need the entry point main method. So you can give main control space you will get this option method. Now let's discuss about the array. Array is also zero-based index only. While declaring an array, you have to fix the size. Size is fixed. Declaring. While declaring, size will be fixed. For example, I wanted to store 5 integer. In order to store 5 integer, I wanted to store something like 20, 30, 40, 5 values I wanted to store. In order to store 5 values, I can declare one by one integer, something like this, int A, int B. Okay, suppose if you want to send this value from one place to another place, you have to send it one by one. So to handle this, we will try to go for array. Array is not widely used. Concept of array is used for the further concept of collections. We'll be discussing about collections. Collections are derived from the array concept. When it comes to array zero-based index. It can be a collection of any data types. It can be a collection of integer, collection of double, collection of float, character. String can also be a array. Collection of string is also an array, whereas string is nothing but collection of character. All will go to the end of data types, predefined data types. Now, the declaration of array will be something like this. Now, this is the introduction to the object. So listen carefully. This is how array should be defined. If it is an integer array, square bracket, if you give double, it's an array of double. If you give char, it will be a character array. String is nothing but a character array only. And if I try to give Boolean, it will be a Boolean array. You can give any array. I want to store number 10, 20, 30. So let me create as an integer. You can create byte array, short array also. Let me give the array name as numbers. Listen carefully. It's an array declaration. In the variable name, you have to give the location for 5 integer. Now we will be using a keyword called new. Okay, this is something which you need to understand in Java clearly. This will take some time. Right now, you have to take it as a syntax only. Later only you can understand basically. Wherever you see new keyword, it will create a memory. In your RAM, it will create a memory. Memory for how many integer we are planning over here? How many integer we are planning to store over here? I'm planning to store 5 integer. Okay. So memory for 5 integer is what I'm trying to create. So right now, when you write the statement, semicolon is going to be the termination. This is the syntax. When you write the statement, what is going to happen is, and when you run it basically, see when you write, nothing will happen. When you run it, all execution, during the execution only, all this will be allocated. Okay. Now, numbers is nothing but a variable name. Number is not going to hold the value. Numbers is just a variable name which is not going to hold the value. It will point to some address. All of you listen carefully. Numbers will, I can, if I give a equal to 10, a will be holding the value. A equal to 100, we can store the value. Byte a equal to 100. Byte b equal to, short b equal to 100. It's a predefined data type. We are just loading the value directly. But in non-predefined data type, you will be loading a collection. You will be loading a collection of character. You will be loading a collection of integer, collection of double. You will be giving the size also. Size is fixed. 5 integer, 20 integer, you will give. That's fine. Now, number should be holding 5 integer right now. How can one point can load a 5 integer? For that, what will happen is number will point to some address. This variable name numbers will point to some address. I give L1, L2, those things on you don't want to worry about. It's some address in your RAM. That will be taken care by the JVM. We don't want to worry about it. Some address will be there. Our duty is to understand what will be inside that address. Now, integer. What are the index point? From when to where we will have the index point? So 0 to 4. That will be the index point. Starts with 0. In 0th index, some value will be there. First index, some value will be there. Second index, some value will be there. Third index, some value will be there. Fourth index, some value will be there. That's it. Only these are the index point. So 5 values, right? So 0 to 4 will be the index point. Okay. I want to store 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So right now, when you run this program here, memory will be allocated for 32 bits into 5. Memory will be allocated 32 into 5 bits. 32 bits into 5. Memory will be allocated when you run this program. Now, I wanted to store in 0th index, I want to store 10. Okay, to access 0th index, you have to give, you need to know this location. That location is pointed by which variable? What is the variable name we have given? Okay, numbers. So numbers is basically, we just call it as a reference variable. Okay, instead of variable name, we tell it as reference variable. We'll discuss about that. When we create our own data, when we create our own data type, and when we create our own object, then you will be getting a better idea on this. Right now, if you are able to get this, something like numbers is not going to hold 5 values directly, it will point to some address. That is enough. Okay. Numbers is going to point to some memory. That's it. That memory will be holding 5 integer. And to access those 5 integer, I have to use the index. Index point starts with 0. So 5 value means 0 to 4. Zeroth index, I want to store numbers of. First index, I want to store 20. Like this, I can keep on accessing the index point. I can give the value. Just listen carefully. Numbers of, and each and every index point can hold an integer only. If I try to store decimal values, it will throw error because it's a type of integer. Every index point can store an integer only. You cannot store it double value, float value. You cannot store a string. Not possible. Only integer it will accept. Numbers of 4. Let me give 50. 5 values ready. Now let me do one thing. Let me try to get the value. Right, we are loading the value. We will try to get the value. Now what happen if I try to print numbers? Numbers is holding what detail? Numbers is actually holding what detail in this case? If you see here, number is actually pointing to some address. That's it. Okay. Inside that address only, you will have 5 values. Okay. First of all, if I try to print numbers, if you see when I try to print numbers, it will give some random address. We don't want to worry about it. Just giving an idea. Okay. This address is holding 5 values. This address is actually holding the 5 index point. So numbers 0. That's how you have to access the value. Okay. The same way I can access other values also. Let me try to do one thing. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me try to print all these things. 1, 2, 3. Getting the value. And okay. Now let me try to do one more thing. I'll try to do index 5. What will happen if I do index 5? Do we have the index 5? Numbers, when you see new, that will allocate a new memory. Numbers will be holding memory detail. That's it. And what will be there in that memory and all, we should know about it because we only created this integer array. Index point is there. So we should know what we are dealing with. Now, do we have index right now? We don't have 15 index, right? Let me run this print. Okay. You can see here, it is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Now what's happening here? By mistake, if you close the console, suppose you while reading some, you close the console, what you do is go to window, show view, console. Under window, show view. Let me open it again and let me maximize it for viewing. You can see what is there. Exception in main method and java.lang. What is this java.lang? Package. Okay, it's a class name. Everything is a class. Every class is basically a type. It's one of the type. Okay, class. Now index 5 out of range, out of bound for length 5. And what about this one com.nsc.data types demo to main, and it says data types demo to Java colon 22, line number 22. What is this? You should be able to read the exception. Okay. Right now we got one exception, array index out of bound exception. When you try to access the index point which is not there, then you will be getting this error, array index out of bound exception. Got it? And this is your class detail. Where it is throwing the error, it will tell you the detail. If you go through the exception, you can understand. Okay, to fix this, I should not give this. Understood? Clear for you? Now, if I want to store a decimal value, what should I do? the decimal value if you want to store. You can create a array of float, or you can create an array of double. Both will be working. If you create array of float, every time you have to give f for storing the values. Already numbers is reserved for integer, so you cannot redeclare it. You can change the value, but anyhow, I'll try to give some other details. Salary, new, double, and index point, like size you need to give. Whenever it comes to array, the size is fixed. It's a zero-based index. Okay, right now, like salary, it will be salaries of 0. Listen carefully, salaries of 0. You can store integer. Okay, integer is possible. Double can store integer because double is of 64-bit, integer is of 32-bit, which is possible. Opposite is not possible. Just understand what value you are trying to store. String is not at all possible in any of the predefined data types. You cannot give a string in any of the predefined data types. Let me try to do this. This is how you have to create a double array. Okay. Now, let me comment this line number 2, like index point 2, index point 1, I'll comment. I'll try to print the value. What will be the output? Salaries of 0. Now, what happened in this case? Listen carefully. When you try to declare the double, okay, how many doubles we are planning to initialize here? We're planning to initialize 3 doubles. So right now, what will happen is on this stage, 64 into 3 bits of 64 into 3 bits of memory will be occupied. It should be occupied. Okay, when you run the program on this stage itself, it will be occupied. So the salaries is basically a variable name, reference variable. It will point to some address. It will hold the address detail only, some random address, L3 LD. That address will be holding the index point. So that address will be having the memory for the double value, 0th index, first index, second index. Now, without value, it cannot allocate a memory. Right now, during the runtime, when it comes to line number 23 or when it comes to line number 8, it has to allocate the memory. 32 into 3 or here 64 into 3, it needs to allocate. For allocating it, what will happen is it will try to store the default values. What is the default value? For all the predefined data types, there is a default value. You can notice the default value here. A byte, short, long, float, double, all are going to have the default values. That is nothing but 0. For Boolean, the default value is false. What is for character? Character is also having some default values because it has to, when you create a character array, it has to load the memory. For 5 character, if you are creating, then it has to load the memory 16 into 5. This is the default value for character. Let me try to print it and show you. You can see you will be getting the output. You can see 0.0. For double, for integer, because these are all predefined data types. Even though it's an array of integer, array of double, it's a predefined data type. So default values should be loaded always because memory needs to be allocated. For predefined data types, memory will be allocated. Now, let's listen carefully. What is the default value for string? I wanted to store, let's try this, try it quickly. Create a string array, just create string array to store red, green. Alternate way is also there, green, yellow. Try this quickly. Create a string array to store red, green, yellow. Let's create it quickly. So you got it right. So you have to declare something like this. Let me take it from the chat window. So string array, string is a class. So you have to give something like this, key values. So anyhow, so right now what will happen is, right now in this case, plus as the variable name, it will point to some location. If you try to print some detail, it will try to print the location. How? That location will be like allocating like the space for string. It's a non-predefined data type. Each string is going to be a non-predefined data type. String is a non-predefined data type. Now, what will be the default value for non-predefined data types? If I try to print this, I will be getting the output. For integer, you can tell the size 32-bit. For a double, 64-bit. So memory needs to be allocated in that case. Okay. So what will be the, like, on running this particular line number 32, without this, if I try to print it, what will be the output? Right. If I run with the storage, storing the value, I'll be getting the output. What if I comment this? So right now, for integer and all, it will be like 0, 0, 0, 0 will be there. For double, it will be 0, 0.0, 0, 0.0 will be there. So 0 is getting stored. When 0 is getting stored, it will be allocating a memory. 64 into 3 will be there. 64, each double will be 64 bit into 3. String, check it. You can see string is right now, there will be 3 index point. Index point will be there. Each index point is not going to point to any number of characters. If it is not pointing to any number of characters, it's basically an empty. You don't have anything. Okay. No memory allocation happened inside that. Just the index point is created. That's it. There is no memory allocation for this. If you store any character, it will try to load the value. Right now, if you store red, green, yellow, the size of this array will be 3 plus 3 red or ed red. That is 3 character. Here 6 character. Here 5 character. So 3 plus 6, 9, 9 plus 5 will be 14 character. The size of this array will be, string array will be 14 character, 14 into 16. That is during this time. When I try to add one more record, the size will be unchanged. Got it? Non-predefined data types. Okay. So whenever it comes to predefined data types, predefined in the sense, it's already defined. Everything is going to be defined. The default values, range, size, everything is defined. So in order to know the size of predefined data types, you just want to know the data type name. Non-predefined data types, you should have the value. Then only memory will be allocated. You should have the value. So during the runtime only all will happen. Okay. Any of these objects and all will be created during the runtime. We'll discuss more on this. Okay. There's an alternate way to declare the array. With that, we'll just refresh the top. In order to create an array, there's an alternate way. We can create an array like this also. Then the curly braces, you can give the value. Right now, what will happen is directly it will store the value. What is the size of this array? System.out.println marks. If you do, yeah, so 4 value I'll store. If I try to run marks only, you can see some address will be given. Marks. And if I try to give dot length, there's a variable called length, which will give you the size of the any array. It will give you the size of the array. You can check for any array, even for string also you can check. System.out.println colors.length. This tells you the colors.length, array length, it will tell you. Access the value. If you know exactly what value you want, you can access it. Of same way, you can declare a string array also. It's possible. You try to do this one as an hands-on. Try to check for character array. Create a character array and check the default value. when you do this character, okay, let me keep it as letters equal to new. If I give 3, so size of each character will be 16-bit. So 16-bit into 3 will be allocated during the runtime. Okay, it has default value also. While printing, you may not be able to see the default character. You have to append some data before and after that you can try it. Okay. For example, this record ABC is there and the final value is there. System.out.println, let me take this value. I wanted to print something like this. System.out.println, the mark of first student, and I wanted to then carefully. You cannot give this within the double quote. If you give within the double quotes, what will happen? I'm just putting double quotes and type something. The mark of first student, marks of 0. So what will happen in that case? It just prints whatever you write it inside double quote. That's a string. It will just take it as a string and print it. Suppose I wanted to append this value, whatever the value in the 0th index or whatever the integer value that I wanted to append. In that case, what you need to do is you can give a string. String with anything is going to be a string only. You can use concatenate, that is nothing but plus. You can do marks of 0. Right now, this is nothing but mark of first student, just printing the detail. So append anything to string will be a string. It will not throw any error on. In Java, anything you append to string will be of string. Marks of 1. Second student. Okay. Like this, you try to print a character and see, you will be able to see some space. Okay, fine. That you check it. Check default value for character. By creating an array, you can check it. Whatever we have discussed, just I have given you an idea about data types only, predefined, non-predefined data types, and how to do basic arithmetic operations. Those concepts only I've explained you. So what you can try doing is try to finish this assignment. These are the tasks which I'll be giving you. Task detail, I'll add it over here, and also I'll upload the detail in the drive link. You try to do these 2 tasks, not much task, these only 2 tasks. You want to store this integer base equal to 25 and int height height equal to 1 and calculate area of triangle. Okay, so 25 by 2, 25 into base into height by 2. Calculate area of triangle. Just try this. These 2 tasks you try to complete. Task 1 and task 2. Simple only, just it takes 10 minutes to complete. You can complete these 2 tasks. So any doubts? Whatever we have discussed. Basic, any doubts with basic? Predefined, non-predefined data types, how to use these data types and do some coding part. These are clear for you? So tomorrow we will be discussing about the logical statements. See, when it comes to programming, okay, you have to work on these concepts. You have to work on the concepts like, for sure you need an hands-on for all these concepts. Without hands-on, it's quite difficult. Architecture of the programming which you are working on, data types. Conditional statement, iterative statement. Tomorrow we'll be completing this. conditional iterative statement methods. Okay, understanding static and non-static methods, creating static and non-static methods. Variable you need to understand. Methods, variable, static and non-static difference you need to understand. Then we can understand the difference between classes and objects. For this, you need an answer. If you are clear with these topics, then entire OOPS concept will be simple, very simple. Like inheritance, method overriding, which is nothing but frame of some abstract interface. All these concepts are going to be very simple once you understand the OOPS, like the object concept clearly. This is something which I gave you an introduction only today. If you see this which I discussed over here, all these are object only. String is an object concept, array is an object concept. Wherever you see new keyword, same thing. String is most widely used, that's why we are not doing this. Actually, string should be stored in this way only. Each character by character only we need to store. But if you want to store your name character by character, it will be quite difficult for you to handle. That's why they have customized the string logic. Basically, this will create a new memory that 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 index will be there. Each index will be holding the character. We'll see discuss the string concept will be separate and the object concept will be separate. Two concepts you need to learn. So don't get confused with string. So fine. Just understand how to use the string and do the operation. Whatever we have discussed till now, those are all some basic concepts. Whatever we are going to discuss further will be depend on these things, the data types. In the next class, we'll discuss the rest of the topic. If you have any doubts, let me know. And inform others, try to share the videos and inform others to join the meeting in this week, because this week is going to be the basement. It will be difficult if you skip the meeting and then think of watching the recording and all, it will be quite difficult only. Try to inform others to join the session on time. Okay. We'll connect tomorrow. Try to be follow the session. In case if I'm moving a bit fast or if you are getting confused, let me know. Because once you finish this session, you have to do the automation project. For sure, everyone needs to be enrolled in automation. So that anyhow, by spending time in this session, you will be able to do. Otherwise, if you start learning after leaving this session, it will be very difficult for you to get back again. Okay. Spend some one, like it will go for some 20 days. Not much, just 2 hours. It will really help in your career also. So that's all for the session today. We'll connect tomorrow then.
Thank you, sir.